Bob Cialdini, who's Regents Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Marketing at Arizona State University. Bob, welcome.
Well, thank you, Eric. I'm very pleased to be here.
Now, you are the author of a wonderful new book called Persuasion, which follows another book from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, called Influence, which is really one of the canonical books about why people make the decisions they make. It's taught in psychology courses around the world, and clever marketers use it as well in their business. Could you walk us back to Influence, which is kind of the foundation for Persuasion, and tell us about how the books differ from each other, how you did the research for each of them, and where they take you?
All my life I've been a sucker. I've been a patsy for the appeals of various fundraisers or salespeople who've come to my door, and I would stand in unwanted possession of tickets to the sanitation workers' ball and subscriptions to Beekeeper's Digest. And I always thought to myself, how did this happen? Because I didn't want these things on their merit. It must have been the presentation of those things that got me to say yes to them. Isn't that interesting? Let me study this. Let's see how the influence process works, not in terms of simply presenting the features, the benefits of a product or service or even an idea, but how we deliver those merits, those features that inclines people to want them. And so I began to study the process. Initially as a behavioral scientist, I realized that if I were to truly understand how this worked outside of laboratory situations and college campuses where I was studying them, I needed to get into the real world where people are fighting the influence wars every day. And so
salesmen,
salespeople,
persuaders, politicians,
marketers, politicians, public relations specialists, fundraisers, recruiters, all these people whose business it is to get us to say yes to them. Well, they weren't going to just tell me what their secrets were. That's proprietary. So I began to infiltrate their training programs undercover. I began to answer ads, and I learned how to sell automobiles from a lot. I learned how to sell insurance from an office. I learned how to sell portrait photography from the phone, vacuum cleaners, door to door. And in those training programs, I looked for the principles of influence that were successful across the widest range of those circumstances. And what I found surprised me in that there were only six universal principles that every successful influence profession employed. One was reciprocity. People want to say yes to those who have given to them first. There was a recent study that showed when customers came into a candy store, if they were given a gift of chocolate at the beginning, they were 42% more likely to buy in that store because they felt obligated to give back to someone who had given to them.
Good.
Another is liking. We prefer to say yes to those we know and like, but how does someone achieve liking? One thing that we learned negotiators can do is to find a commonality, something that's similar with their negotiation opponent. Bring that to the surface and they get a better deal. They get more grace in the negotiation because they're liked more as a consequence. A third is authority. Of course, we prefer to say yes to those individuals who can give us evidence that they are competent, they have credentials, they have experience in a particular arena. And another is social proof. The idea that if a lot of our peers are doing something, it's probably a good choice for us. So if we get information that this is the fastest growing or the largest selling, I saw an article of a study that was done in Beijing, shows you the cross-cultural reach of this. A restaurant manager, a restaurant owner, can significantly increase the likelihood that people will choose a particular dish from the menu by adding a small addition to the menu description in each case. And it's not the one you would think. This is the specialty of our house, or this is our chef's selection for the evening. No, it's a little asterisk that says, this is one of our most popular items. And each one immediately becomes 13 to 20% more popular.
So that is social proof.
That's social proof. What are the other people around? And what I love about that study, it was entirely honest, it was entirely costless, and it produced a 13 to 20% increase in choice. We all have most popular models or options. Say that at the outset first, and that persuades people to pay attention to it and to decide to try it. The fifth principle is scarcity. We want those things that are scarce, rare, dwindling in availability, not easily accessible. One study showed that in a supermarket, if the supermarket put underneath a brand only X items per customer, they doubled purchasing. Scarcity. And then finally it's commitment and consistency. We want to be consistent with what we have already said or done publicly. So if we can ask people to take a small step in our direction, they'll be more likely to stay consistent with that because they've already made a commitment toward our product, our service, our idea.
What's an example?
Doctor's offices, there is a problem with no-shows. People who make an appointment and then don't appear. It's very expensive for the healthcare system. If instead of giving a patient the date and time on a little appointment card at the end of every appointment, you give that patient a blank card and have him or her write in the date or time, no-shows drop 18% because they've made an active public commitment to that time, instead of being given something foisted on them.
That is amazing. Now, when you wrote Persuasion, you took a step farther and looked at it from the point of view of the actual persuaders. And let me summarize, if I could, what I took away as the fundamental point of persuasion, when borrowing some of your own language here. Who we are, when it comes to making any choice, is highly determined by where our attention is in the moment before we make the choice. Now, if you think of yourself as a rational decision maker, that's a hard concept to swallow. But Persuasion, the book, is full of amazing anecdotes that illustrate that point. Now, if there was one anecdote that you thought was kind of the canonical anecdote of Persuasion, the one that really is illustrated the importance of attention before you make a decision, what would that anecdote be?
It would be the story of a study that was done by an online furniture store. They had various kinds of sofas, some of which were more comfortable, others that were priced well. They were inexpensive. They wanted to sell more of their comfortable furniture. There was a larger profit margin associated with that. So they did a little experiment. Half of the visitors to their site were sent to a landing page that had fluffy clouds in the background associated with comfort. Those individuals rated comfort as a more important feature in their decisions about what to buy. They searched the site. They went into the site and prioritized information about comfort, and ultimately they preferred to purchase a more comfortable sofa.
Just because the landing page had that image of fluffy clouds.
Because their attention was drawn to the idea of comfort, which was associated with certain kinds of sofas. Now, just to be sure that that was the real cause, they sent another group of visitors to a landing page that had pennies, coins, money in the background. Those people now rated cost as the most important feature for them. They searched the site for price-relevant features, and they preferred to buy more inexpensive furniture. That's the idea of persuasion. What we do first, before we ever present to people the message itself, the content of what we have to offer, we put them in a frame of mind that prioritizes the strongest feature of our case. So if we think comfort is the thing that's our strength, we need to provide some sort of image or message, or even a saying, an adage that has to do with comfort, that would draw attention to that concept, and then the wheels will just be in motion, and they will take that person to where we want that person to go inside our message.